Now, as we move towards the 2019 elections, a whole lot of talk has, emanated, and the talks are still actually, going on, especially in the social media. And that's why a lot of Nigerians have been asking what exactly it is about 2019 and the alternatives for that election. Victor Okhai joins us. He's the presidential candidate for the Providence People's Congress and the convener of the Stop Them movement. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about first your interest in coming into this political process, political journey. I've had cause to see, a series of your short clips and videos talking about some of the issues bedeviling our nation. What are those things that, caused, this action of yours to say, I want to be president of Nigeria?
Okay. First of all, Nigeria is a country I love very dearly. It's the only country I have. I don't carry a second passport. My children were all born here, and this is a country we hope to continue living in. And so it's important that we build the kind of society that we want, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. I recall growing up the kind of society that I grew up in. Interesting that you brought this up. I was talking to my kids yesterday and they were asking me questions. They said, you talk about the good old days, the good old days. What exactly were those good old days? What were those days like? And it just took me back to memory lane. And I recalled, and a lot of younger viewers would be amused to hear that you could travel to London with 450 naira air ticket without a visa, okay? And at a point in time, the naira exchanged for about 68, kobo to the dollar, which means you needed about 130 something,
Naira.
No, dollars to buy 1 naira, okay? So, and I could go on and tell you all the things, and I started telling them about Children's Day and Independence Day and the March Past and where kids are fed, we looked forward to Children's Day and all of that. I recounted to them how cars cost then about, you could buy, you finished as a graduate, there's a car waiting for you, employment waiting for you. You could buy a car for 1,000 naira or less or slightly more. When the Peugeots came and they were going for about 1,200 and then eventually to 3,000, before it got to about 6,000, we were screaming at the time. I'm talking naira, okay? Now that's the good old days. And so you want to ask yourself, so what went wrong? Now, increasingly, rather than making progress, we seem to have degenerated. Now, I want to take us back briefly to memory lane. You recall that in the year 1966, there was a major disruption in this country. That was the year of the coup and the counter-coup. Young officers in their 20s and 30s, they didn't really have any experience in government or anything. They were just young officers. In that coup and counter-coup, there was a disruption in our democratic process. The same set of people have remained in government. If you do the same thing over and over and over, you can't expect different results, okay? Now, this same set of people have been ruling both in uniform and out of uniform, okay? And it gets to a point where even the ideas become antiquated, which is why companies reinvent themselves or reinvent their products. You hear new, improved. Now, for what happened in 1966, I say this, people think it's a joke and all that, but to change the class of 66, it would require a child of 66. I was born in 66, and I was born to stop the class of 66 that have held us bondage all of these years.
I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand the mathematics. I don't understand. The metaphysics in all of that analogy. A while ago, I did say that Nigerians and some humans some Nigerians, so to speak, they're very aware when it comes to the Ember Month. I've never believed any of that.
Stuff like
but
that.
now you're making me also to add another one to my disbelief and, unbeliefs when you say those in 66, born in 66, can actually cause the disruption.
No, I'm talking about it takes a child of 66 to stop the class of 66. I don't want to dwell too much on that. I want to face issues and then talk about.
All right, well, I think we'll have the conversation when we're done. I think that's a conversation. But again, causing this disruption, are we doing this because we just felt that we should, I'm sure some would have asked you, Mr. Okhai, are you in this to win or you're in this to make a name?
Oh, good. That's a very good question. Anyone who's known me well enough, friends, associates and all that, I've always known where I'm going for over 30 years. Anybody, and people will testify, I've always said it, I'm going to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a mission. It's not an ambition. What I have not been sure about is the when. But you know what? The time is now. There's quite a lot that needs to be fixed in this country. I'll say something to you. I like to use analogies rather than data because data can be, I recall a story. I saw this on social media. A young man who was crying bitterly because he was, arrested by the now famous or infamous SARS, as the case may be. What was he arrested for? Carrying a phone, and then they checked his bank balance and all of that. And he was embittered because, he was doing Forex and Bitcoin trading. Now, we have a set of people who do not understand what the time is saying right now. We're talking about, if you notice, if you see that increasingly, business is moving from bricks and mortars to, your palm top. An example I would usually give is, which is also a product of disruption, is Uber, for instance. With that singular app, hundreds of thousands of Nigerians, I'm not even talking about abroad now, are empowered and they're getting jobs. That is a product of one man's invention. Now you need people who understand what the time is saying right now. We need to begin to talk about running smart economies. These days, it's not about working hard, it's about working smart. If you want to work hard, even for farming, if you use those hard implements, you need to begin to think smart, begin to work smart. That's the kind of economy we need to be running right now, okay? And so the young man obviously was dealing with someone who's antiquated in his ideas, who has not been reorientated on what the time is saying right now, which is exactly what you get in government today. Some governments are progressive, and I want to give credit. Lagos State government, for instance, is a bit more forward-looking in the way it is run, And so there are a few that are thinking in that direction, but that's the way we need to go.
When you talk about governments now,
yes.
Sorry to cut you, you just mentioned Lagos State.
Yes.
Would it be right to say, so far, it's not about party and ideologies,
no,
but
it's not about
individuals?
party.
Because a while ago, I was talking about trying to have a peek into Mr. Fasho's voluminous manifesto.
Document, yes.
And now you just mentioned Lagos, which is an APC state. And you also said a couple of others are also doing well. Perhaps some other states may be run by the PDP. But are they doing that on the basis of their manifestos or ideologies?
Well, I'll say this to you readily. There's a lot has to do with leadership. And leadership for me has to be visionary, okay? I'll give you an example again. Like I said, I like illustrating, John F. Kennedy who had this vision about putting a man on the moon. And you will recall that at the time, if you see the speech where he talked about this, he painted a vivid mental image of a ship that had not existed. I'm talking about the vehicle that would go into space and come down. Talked about the alloys that had not yet been invented, how it was going to go into space, at what speed, get there, come back. He painted such a strong image, sold it to the Americans. They didn't know how they were going to do it. They didn't even have the resources. But here was a visionary leader who knew where he was going and where he was taking his country to. They bought into it. He died before it happened, but before, and like he predicted, before the turn of that decade, Americans put a man on the moon. But guess what? Since then, they've not been able to put any other man on the moon. Now, that's the power of visionary leadership. I could give you examples of so many visionary leaders as well. That is very critical and important for a country, especially a country like ours. Dubai was a vision of, was a product of vision. Eco Atlantic, where others saw water, somebody saw a city. Now that's the kind of leadership I'm talking about. That's what we need. Unfortunately, a lot of the parties that we have are not ideologically based. That's different, though, from the party that I'm in. That's built on ideology, which is why I'm stronger, and that's why I'm a member of that party.
Tell me more about your party.
It's the Providence People's Congress. The motto is, do it right, get it right, do it right. And there's something that is very strong about that party. This is a party where, and you see it even on the forms and all that, they tell you clearly, no godfatherism, no money bags, no ideology. And you know what? That is one party where you can go.
No money bags.
No, I will tell you this. Let me explain that.
Will the doors be shut against the money bag?
If you come waving money, it will be shot against you.
Ooh.
I'm talking about ideology, and that's the truth. Yes, there's free entry and all of that, but there'll be gatekeeping as well. And the reason is you can't come and flaunt money. Everyone is an equal owner. You can't come in there and you're flaunting money. And that's the reason we've lost it. You see, and people buy people's conscience. What they buy is they create hunger, you know. And this hunger, I say, the hunger in Nigeria is artificial. It's not real. People deliberately starve people so that when they come and give them a bit of what truly belongs to them, what I call is the Rankaj mentality. You know, Rankaj means long may you live. You understand what I'm saying? And then you go Babake or Rankaj as they would say. What truly belongs to us, somebody will come steal that money and they take out of that money, you know, when you are impoverished and at your most vulnerable
So are you saying
moment,
that
we'll offer it to you?
The Al-Majri system,
Yes.
or the Talakawas system,
Yes.
is artificially created to impoverish people so that they can remain subservient?
No, but of course, when you deprive people of education, for instance, okay, where you have only one rich person in a whole community, where the wealth is not equally or evenly distributed, that's an anomaly.
You were born in the North.
Yes, I grew up in the North. I speak, I read and write the Hausa language very well.
Tell us, because you also have a strong affinity with the East.
Yes, my mother is Igbo.
And you're also very strong here in the West.
Yes.
So, I know you pride yourself as a homegrown Nigerian.
Yes.
What are those things, now that you know the problems,
Yes.
ideologies, and now you say your political party is set to redirect and correct some of these anomalies?
Cause a positive disruption in the system.
How can you cause a positive disruption in the system
Yes.
when you don't want or you abhor money bags?
No, I'm going to explain that.
It reminds us of someone who once said he hates money.
No, that's not
Does
true.
your
No,
party
no. I will
hate
say this
money?
to you. Don't get me wrong. There's a place for money. True. There's no way. The thing is, we value integrity over money. We put a premium on integrity first. And so you may have all of the money, for instance, and you think you can just come muzzle your way and buy off. That's not going to happen. Okay? So we're looking at character above all else. You know, so that makes a difference. You know, different from other places where you go and then you push the money and then everyone just falls at it and then common sense flies out of the window. Now that's different.
So presidential aspirant.
Yes.
Are you the sole presidential aspirant of your party?
No, there's a process. I mean, I'm not the sole presidential aspirant. Obviously, it's, like I say, all comers, it's open, anyone can come in and all that. There are other people aspiring as well. Am I a leading contender? Yes. Do I hope to win the candidacy of the party? I'm sure of that.
And
So,
what's the nomination, cost for nomination forms? What is it like?
oh, I'm happy to tell you that it's just 500,000 for presidential and a presidential aspirant. But more importantly, and it is so stated even in the manifesto, I mean, even in the, what you call it now, in the Constitution, if you can't even afford it, okay, members, if you're a person of integrity, members will put together the money for you. It is in the Constitution of the party.
So in other words, some of those we've seen, getting nomination forms through support from their friends.
Yes.
They actually copied that from your Constitution.
Well, I don't know. I can only speak for.
Now let's
the
talk about
parties that I know of.
let's talk about the Stop Them movement.
Yes.
That's a movement Nigerians would want you to speak more about.
Yes, okay.
Stop Them.
Yes. Speaking truth to open progressive democracy.
So that's the acronym.
Yes.
Speaking truth to open.
Open progressive democracy. You see, what's missing right now in the system is a situation where everyone knows what's wrong, but people lack the courage to come out and say. It's like the proverbial king who was walking naked. You know, he knew he was naked. Everyone knew he was naked, but no one had the courage to say it until a child spoke. Now that's what's missing. If you look at what's happening in the country today, people are dying every day. We're not at war, and yet there's so much death in this country, so much needless death. Who's talking? No one. I wouldn't necessarily say no one, but people lack the courage for so many reasons. Sometimes, some people don't speak because either they have, I mean, some of the people who should speak cannot speak either because they are a part of the system, either because they have stolen money, and if they open their mouths to speak, they might throw up a dossier and that will shut them up, or perhaps they lack the courage, to speak truth, to power. Now, the movement is different. We aim to be the conscience of ordinary Nigerians. There's so many issues that bedevil the system and the country right now. Someone has got to speak out. Someone has got to be the conscience of the people. I give you an example. In one of the videos, for instance, we talked about Lee Sharibu. I say to you, sir, if that were your daughter, how would you feel as a person? I mean, think about it, that every other person was brought out except this girl. It's inexcusable that she should still be in captivity. If she had been dead, that's a different matter. We were told,
So who's got the blame now? Who do you put the blame on?
Obviously on the government. The buck stops on the table of the government. They did a negotiation. How could you negotiate for everyone but one? Now what's leadership? Permit me to go to the good book, the Bible.
Let me get this.
No, I won't talk about. Let me say this. Where you live,
was the negotiation done based on names?
It's for all the girls, I would expect. Why would you negotiate for part of them? A good shepherd would leave 99 sheep to go after one. That's what happens in America. For one soldier, they can deploy 1,000 soldiers. They know they will lose a few. But you know what? When your country does that for you, you're proud to fly the flag of that country. Now that's what's missing. Here, you know what happens? People die, okay? Maybe in the north or wherever, where some of these killings are taking place, and then maybe the press or the media may report that 20 people died. And then you hear government arguing, or the police saying, no, it was only 5 people, it was only 10 people. Brother, every life must count. If those 5 people, if one of those 5 people were your siblings, or your children, or your son, or your daughter, or whatever, how would you feel? You know what I'm talking about? We've got to be able to put a price to every life. Let me give an example here. To give you the value, I mean, think about it. You may think that.
So if you had a chance
Yes.
to have been in charge,
Yes.
what would you have done differently? As the CNC,
Yes.
To get the young Nigerian out of captivity?
Well, first of all, I don't think that even what is going on now ought to have dragged to this point. We've seen what happened with the FARC rebels and some of these long, protracted rebel wars in so many parts of the world. Every war, any general or any military strategist will tell you, would always end with dialogue. Every war, you know. They usually would end with dialogue. So why don't you start that from the very beginning? The problem is either that it's pride or probably you might think that these people are stubborn or whatever. I see what is happening, the pockets of violence all over the place, like a child throwing tantrum. I'm not particularly singling anyone out, but you know, when you see protests, whether in the Niger Delta or IPOB or whatever, it simply means that somebody is trying to gain attention of the authority and no one is paying attention. Okay? Why are we afraid to confront issues? Why are we afraid to call these people, sit down with them, and then let's talk? Okay? Now that is something, because there is no way it will still end with there. Military force never solved any problem. And in any case, with all due respect to our military, but you know what? A lot of people in positions like this, particularly not those in the battlefield, not the pawns, okay, but some of the people in the higher authority, many of them gain when there's war. At the war front, you know, you can blackmail the authorities and say, look, we need money, otherwise and they'll keep pumping money into that war theater. So it's in the interest of certain people for the war to go on. Okay, so we've got to be able to frustrate that, you know, make sure, give a marching order. I mean, for instance, and I want to say that here, I recall that the president had specifically mandated that the chief of army staff move his operational headquarters to the northeast. That order was never carried out.
Are you sure of that?
I don't know I don't know that he reports from Maiduguri. I don't know that he reports from Maiduguri. If anything, I know that when they were going to attack his village, he flew his family, he got his family out of his village even before the attackers came there. That much I do know, and I'm sure you know that as well.
Well, I'm not aware of that. If he got his family before they came, that would have bound to me having
I don't know, but
some,
I mean,
some information of those who were...
No, okay, don't worry. It could have been a coincidence.
Who were coming.
It could have been a coincidence, but
Absolutely.
he has no dog in the fight in that particular territory right now.
So these are some of the issues that will make 2019, the issue of security, which you are
Security
highlighting
is
now.
critical.
And you also talked
Corruption,
about corruption.
but let me tell you what's most dear to my heart. Please, I'll say this very briefly.
Go ahead.
For me, you can get the best economists in the world. You can get whatever it is you're going to get. If a house with faulty foundation cannot stand, there's a need for healing. My model is Rwanda, okay? That country, there was what I would call fratricide, not just genocide. Brothers killing brothers. It was such a terrible situation. But today, that's the fastest growing economy on the continent, and it's a favorite destination for investors. How were they able to do that? Simply by coming together to talk, confronting the issues. And after that, there was healing. This country needs healing. We need to confront the issues. We don't need to run away from, I mean, it's like what is happening right now is government burying its head.
Now, because we're actually coasting home, but when you say coming together, one of the things I say I must also ask is, are you a member of PACT?
I could never be a member of, I could never have been a member of such an organization.
Did you say such?
Oh yes, I would say
organization?
So. Yes, I would say so. I'll say so, simply because it doesn't make sense. I'm a man of destiny. I'm a destiny carrier. I know exactly what I'm about. I don't need to go into any pact with anyone. You run your race if you're sure about what you're doing. You understand what I'm saying? I'm focused, I'm determined, and I know that I'm going to be sworn in as Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces and President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on May 29, 2019. I have no doubt about that in my mind. How is that going to happen? All I say to people is, watch my space. Simply.
I'm watching your space, and well, you say you can defeat the incumbent.
I will defeat him.
You will defeat President Muhammadu Buhari.
It will take a disruption. Normal strategy is not going to cut it, but watch my space.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Victor Okhai, for joining us on the program. We'll keep the conversation going, and we do hope that in the days ahead we'll find time to have you here in the studios again.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll take a moment to look at some of the things that are happening. We did reach out to Fela Durotoye, who is also, I think, the arrowhead or the sole person in the pact. And well, there were some back and forth, issues concerning phone calls and some other persons picking calls and you being directed to some other persons before you can actually get to him. And I'm hoping that his party members should be aware that when you bring yourself before the people, you must be accessible, reachable. People can reach you and people can actually get back across. So we're hoping that in the days ahead, young Nigerians shouldn't have the semblance of the old brigade, as they say, of the old politicians, political class that were truly unreachable to people when you decide to ask of them what exactly their plans are. It is on this note, we'll say many thanks for being such nice company on Political Stew today from our Political Kitchen. We'll take the conversation again here next week. Stay with us.